Story Sirens, the podcast where we deep dive into our favorite myths and legends and unearth the secrets hidden in the stories. I'm your host, Yenny.
And I'm your other host, Sarah. And today, we announce that all good things must come to an end.
Wait, what?
Yes, that's right. The time has come for Yenny and I to take a step away from the microphone and prepare.
Prepare for?
For season 2 of the Story Sirens podcast.
Oh, wow, Sarah, don't scare me like that. I thought the world was ending or something, or I don't know. Yeah.
Kind of like what humanity thought when the king of the underworld, Hades, kidnapped the spring goddess Persephone?
Couldn't you have found a better segue that didn't give me a heart attack, lady?
No.
Before Sarah gets too far into today's tale, I'd like to confirm that yes, Story Sirens is taking a brief, very, very brief hiatus. Today's episode, episode 35, will be the end of season 1, and season 2 of the Story Sirens podcast returns on, drumroll please, darling, June 5th.
See, we won't even be gone that long.
Hush, Sarah. The audience and I are still mad at you for scaring us.
Oh, you'll get
During
over it.
the 4-week hiatus, Story Sirens will still be having weekly releases. So don't worry, the world's not ending, okay? There will be never-before-published episodes, also re-releases, and some never-before-heard bonus content. Oh.
Ooh.
And of course, you can stay in touch with us and other Story Sirens fans on Instagram at Story Sirens Podcast and in our public Discord, which will always be linked in the show notes. Okay, Sarah, I think I've got the listeners back on your side. I don't know. They'll tell me later. So, what are we talking about today? You were saying something about the underworld kings and spring princesses?
Yeah, something like that. Today, we are covering one of the most popular myths of all time, the story of Persephone and Hades. So let's jump right in.
My pom-poms are ready.
Oh, that's cute. Long ago, after the Titan Cronus was overthrown and his godly children ascended to Mount Olympus, heaven and earth were divided into 3 portions. The 3 mighty sons of Cronus, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, drew lots to see who would rule each portion. Zeus became ruler of the sky, Poseidon ruler of the sea, and Hades ruler of the underworld. Now, contrary to modern ideas of Hades being an evil god, Hades was a dedicated and just king of the underworld, seldom leaving his post. He was, for the most part, peaceful and impartial, and even helped a few heroes on their quests, namely Heracles and Perseus. He desired balance in the universe above all else. He was seldom rash or vengeful, nor was he as prone to war and chaos as his 2 younger brothers were. But that didn't make him an entirely perfect god. He was often feared by mortals because they could not sway him with their tears to return their deceased loved ones. Again, the balance of the world was his primary interest. And this led him to being called the iron-hearted god. On one occasion where he was actually convinced to allow his soul to attempt to leave the underworld.
Keyword attempt.
Yes, very key. It was said that the pleas of Orpheus had moved Hades to tears, which were also made of iron. He was exceedingly wrathful towards those who tried to escape his domain, as the dead leaving the underworld would throw off the balance of the world.
I see a common element here.
And he was wrathful towards those who tried to steal from his domain, be it souls or material possessions. Hades was also the god of mines, precious metals, and gemstones.
Okay, well, that's to be expected, right? At least he wasn't a womanizer like Zeus.
Yeah, true. Though, his skills in the romance department could definitely use some improvement.
That is true.
Hades was lonely, terribly lonely. For unlike his 2 brothers, he had no wife, no mistress, and no lover. At least, not as many lovers by comparison.
Cue Lonely by Akon.
And keep in mind, the underworld was not a fun place to be. It was dark, cold, and sad. While some heroes were granted access to the coveted Elysium Meadows, most residents of the afterlife lived in the Asphodel Meadows or Tartarus, or just the underworld in general. and it was a mundane existence. If you recall in our Odyssey episodes,
Episodes 20 and 21,
when Odysseus met the shade or ghost of Achilles, Achilles told him not to envy the dead, for life was what the dead craved. So all in all, Hades was not having a great time. But one day, on one of his few departures from the underworld, Hades saw the goddess of spring, Persephone, and was instantly in love with her. Persephone was the daughter of Zeus and Demeter.
What?
And in some myths, Hades approached Zeus and asked for Persephone's hand in marriage.
Espérate un momento, Sara, por Dios. No. Persephone.
Yeah.
Is his niece.
Yep.
And this is obviously an episode about their love story.
Yes.
Greek mythology, really? What? We're not even 5 minutes, 10 minutes in, and there's already some form of incest?
Yenny, please. It's the end of season 1. You should know better.
Oh, God.
So anywho, back to the tale. Some myths of Hades approaching Zeus for Persephone's hand is kind of a big deal because it showed that Hades was trying to stick to societal expectations of asking for Persephone's hand, whereas many gods simply took what they wanted. Permission be damned. This is mentioned in the Homeric hymn to Demeter. Zeus had no trouble agreeing to the union, but he knew Persephone's mother would not agree to it. Persephone was always in the company of her mother Demeter, goddess of the harvest, or her attendant water nymphs.
Total helicopter mom if you ask me.
Yes, but Demeter was justifiably protective of Persephone and rarely let her daughter out of her sight. But one day while Persephone was picking flowers in the Vale of Nyssa, she was alone, and the ground beneath her feet suddenly split apart. From the fissure in the land sprang a chariot drawn by jet-black horses, and driving the chariot was Hades himself. He caught Persephone in his arms and drove the chariot back into the earth. The ground closed up behind him, and no one had seen where the young goddess had disappeared to.
Talk about a grand entrance and exit.
Definitely. Unable to find her daughter, Demeter was understandably upset.
Her daughter was kidnapped, Sarah. Upset seems like a little bit of an understatement, especially for our helicopter mommy.
You're right. But she was distraught, enraged, grieved, frantic, all of the synonyms. Is that better?
Yes.
Great. In some myths, she cursed Persephone's attendant nymphs since they had not been with her, and they became the Sirens.
Oh.
Demeter approached each of the gods, begging them to tell her if they had seen her daughter, but none of the gods had seen the abduction occur.
I feel like that had to be a lie. Really? No one heard the ground literally break open and then shut? Look, I'm going Miami here.
I was about to say.
Demeter has haters, that's for sure.
Definitely. Eventually, though, the goddess of magic, Hecate, told Demeter that they should ask the sun god, Helios, in some myths it's Apollo, but they should ask the sun god Helios, the spy of gods and men, if he had seen what happened, since he was always in the sky. The two approached Helios, and he informed them that he had seen what had happened. He saw Hades take Persephone to the underworld to be his wife. Demeter was horrified by this, but Helios tried to comfort her. He told her that she should be pleased by the marriage, that Hades was a good and just god, one of the 3 most powerful gods, a king of one of the 3 realms. This did not please Demeter.
Okay, hear me out. Just hear me out, okay? Persephone is the preppy kid, and Hades is the emo kid. So, of course, Demeter did not want her daughter marrying an emo kid. Oh my God, Avril Lavigne's Skater Boy is blaring in the distance.
Oh my gosh, it totally is. Yes, 100%. So, Demeter returned to Zeus, enraged that he had allowed Persephone to be taken. But when Zeus refused to do anything about the abduction, Demeter left Olympus, supposedly for good. She disguised herself as an elderly mortal woman and began to wander the earth. During her wanderings, she instructed all trees, bushes, vines, plants, anything that grew from the earth to stop growing and to stop producing food. Thus, humanity experienced its very first winter and a terrible famine with it. This naturally distressed the gods of Olympus.
Of course.
Meanwhile, in the underworld, Hades showered Persephone with gifts. Jewelry, fine clothing, musical instruments, pottery, attendants, anything the young goddess could possibly ask for. He promised her that she would not just be a plaything, but she would be queen of the underworld and rule his dominion with him. But Persephone was cold towards him, angered that she had been abducted.
Well, Sarah, I think you're maybe downplaying the emotion she's going through. I mean,
Again?
Would you merely be angered that you're, kidnapped? Our preppy Persephone may very well be going through something that we'd like to call trauma.
Sure, whatever. But regardless, Persephone ignored her captor and explored the underworld, meeting its residents and learning its functions. On Earth, the cries of humanity became too much for the gods of Olympus to bear. Humanity was nearing extinction. The gods demanded that Zeus do something about the plight of famine on the earth, because many of the gods had already approached Demeter and begged her to help the crops grow and end the starvation, but she refused. So Zeus instructed his son Hermes to go to the underworld and retrieve Persephone. Hermes did as instructed, greeting his noble uncle and informing him that it was of the utmost importance that Persephone be returned to the world above. Hades agreed to this. However...
Of course there's a however.
Myth most commonly says that at this point in time, he tricked Persephone into eating a few pomegranate seeds before handing her over to Hermes. It was well known by the gods and by mortals that if you were to eat food from the underworld, you would be bound to it.
Oh, like eating fairy food. Actually, just saying, you can learn more about the pomegranate and other fruits by listening to episode 13.
Oh, such a good episode. But how do you trick a goddess into eating when, strictly speaking, that goddess does not need to eat? A goddess who is only satiated by ambrosia and nectar. Think about that.
I'm thinking a lot of things.
So Persephone went with Hermes and was returned to the world of the living. As soon as Hermes and Persephone were on earth, Demeter ran to her daughter, shedding tears that caused the earth to bloom with greenery and life, and she held her daughter in her arms.
You imagine, the humans in the background going oh my God, finally!
Right?
They're I'm going to die! And then, a mango just comes out and, falls into their hand. They're
Thank goodness.
Oh!
As mother and daughter cried in each other's arms, Demeter asked Persephone if any harm had come to her in Hades' kingdom. Persephone said she'd been treated well, as an honored guest even. Demeter asked if Persephone had made any sort of deal with any being from the underworld. Persephone informed her mother that she had made no deals. Finally, Demeter asked if Persephone had eaten any food of the underworld. Persephone told her that she had eaten a few seeds of a pomegranate, the fruit of the dead, which had been gifted to her by Hades before she left the underworld.
Remember the man that I said that had the mango in his hand? Just imagine the mango now gets dried up.
Yes!
He's no!
My sustenance! It's
back to winter.
It's right back.
That poor guy.
I know, he's just can I just have a bite, please? Oh my gosh. So Demeter cried out to the heavens above because she knew Persephone would have to return to the underworld. So Zeus and Hades approached the pair, and it was decided that Persephone would spend half the year with her mother and half of the year with her husband, Hades. Demeter, of course, was not happy with this agreement, but oddly, Persephone seemed to accept it without issue.
She'd never tell, but secretly she wanted him as well.
Is that the lyrics to Avril Lavigne, madam?
No.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, anyway, technically speaking, this arrangement didn't even need to be offered. By eating the fruit of the pomegranate, the goddess of spring rightfully belonged completely to the underworld. But Hades was trying to get along with his sister/mother-in-law.
I was on board with this until you reminded me that they're all related. Really, Sarah? Sister, mother-in-law? You're enjoying me having this eye twitch.
I am enjoying it so much. Persephone's time in the underworld had shown her the full cycle of human life. As the goddess of spring, she had only ever seen the beautiful parts of humanity, the early parts of the lives of men. But as queen of the underworld, she saw where the human journey ended, how heroes must be honored, and how villains must be punished, how balance must be maintained. She was at peace with the arrangement made for her.
This was all because her head was up in spring, and she needed to come back down to the underworld to really see the meaning of it all.
Okay, why is this Avril Lavigne song sticking so well?
I have no idea. But I was writing this, and I'm like, oh my God.
It works.
It really
so works.
does work.
So, as mentioned earlier, Demeter was enraged by this arrangement. She viewed the entire ordeal as unjust and cruel. When her daughter was with her, Demeter filled the world with light, life, and warmth. When her daughter was gone, Demeter forced the plants to become dormant, to cease their production of food, and wanted man to suffer, and therefore the other gods to suffer, as much as she suffered during her daughter's absence.
I'm still thinking about the guy with the mango.
I know. This poor guy. And so the seasons were born. Spring and summer while mother and daughter were united, and fall and winter while mother and daughter were separated. And yet, during the summer and spring months, there was still grief. Hades, who rarely took part in the festivities of Olympus, grieved the loss of his wife as she dwelt among the living. He could not join her, for who would supervise the underworld with as much care as he would? As well, despite being the full sibling of many of the Olympians, Hades was not himself considered an Olympic god. He was what was known as a cthonic god, or god of the dead, dark, and unknown, and he had no station on Olympus. So when Demeter took Persephone to dwell upon Olympus for 6 months, the husband and wife were completely separated, while Nyx, Thanatos, Hypnos, Charon, the Furies, and faithful Cerberus were all present within the underworld. None were viewed as equal to Hades. That role belonged solely to his wife, and her absence was sorely felt by the king of the underworld. Now, during the winters, when Persephone did return to the dark underworld, Persephone was known as the dreaded Persephone. So, what changed for the spring goddess? Was it a loss of innocence, growing up, finding new opportunities, finding love?
Oh, Sarah, is this about to get steamy? Because this story started with kidnapping and incest, so I just don't know how I feel about that.
It's all up to interpretation.
That does not help, lady.
I'm not here to help. What is understood is that Persephone accepted her role as queen of the underworld. Many of the goddesses of Greek mythology had to put up with absolute nonsense from their male counterparts. But there is a certain air of willingness to Persephone that leads me to believe the affection between the king and queen of the underworld was in fact mutual.
Okay, I can see that. So can Avril.
And I think that's why this myth is so popular and enduring. Today, we join with Hera in bemoaning Zeus's womanizing nature. We join Daphne in denying the advances of Apollo.
We do?
Okay, that's another episode. All in all, it has been proven time and time again that the men of Greek mythology were often failing to appreciate, respect, and care for the women they claimed to love. After all, the goddess Artemis made her father promise that he would never force her to marry.
Persephone should have done that too. That was an option. She had it.
Yes, she should have. But since she didn't get in early with forcing her father to promise her something, and he wound up marrying her off.
So Artemis was right to worry.
Perhaps she found her freedom elsewhere. Think of this also. Her mother, while loving, was restrictive.
The definition of restrictive.
They may have had a wonderful relationship, but if Persephone felt as if she couldn't breathe, if she was living in the shadow of her mother, the goddess of spring versus the goddess of agriculture, we know which one is the bigger deal. Yeah. Perhaps Persephone was looking for the opportunity to spread her wings and live up to her full potential. After all, Throughout this entire story, we know how Demeter feels and what she thinks. We know what is going on in Hades' mind. We even know how Zeus views the whole situation. But we never hear an account of the inner workings of Persephone. Her opinion is completely left out of the narrative.
That is so true. The only glimpse or really theory as to what she may be thinking is when Persephone must go back to the underworld. And I say this because she never complains about it. Sure, she cries and hugs her mommy when she sees her. I mean, it's 6 whole months. But it almost seems as if she's itching to get back to her queenly duties right after.
Right? Now, maybe she was just kidnapped and forced into this and has no agency whatsoever throughout any of the story. But I feel like that is an oversimplification of a beautiful and multifaceted character, don't you?
I do.
Is Persephone a damsel in distress? Or does she take control of her own story? And, once again, was there ever love between Hades and Persephone? In Ovid's Metamorphosis, we learn that Hades had an affair with the beautiful nymph Minthe. There is some debate as to whether or not this relationship occurred before or after his marriage to Persephone. Regardless of when it happened, though, Persephone was angered by the relationship and turned the nymph into the mint plant in order to keep her away from her husband. Was she motivated by spurned love, or did she envy the youth, beauty, and freedom of the nymph?
I'd like to think it was a bit of both.
Agreed. In another story, Persephone, while married to Hades, supposedly fell in love with the mortal Adonis. His affections were split between her and Aphrodite, but it was Aphrodite who was with him at the tragic end of his life. Hades' devotion to Persephone was, for the most part, quite evident.
Well, you just said she might have cheated on her.
One affair is pretty good in the realm of Greek gods.
That is true.
In one myth, the demigod and king of Lapithis, Pirithous, wanted to take Persephone out of the underworld and make her his wife, which I'm just like, that's some cojones right there, sir.
Yeah.
You're going to try and kidnap a goddess and marry her? All right.
Okay, the queen of the underworld?
Yeah, great idea. He convinced his best friend, the hero Theseus, to help him in this pursuit. The two, of course, were unsuccessful in their kidnapping attempt, and Hades punished the two men by binding them to chairs of forgetfulness. Theseus was eventually freed thanks to Hercules, but Hades required Pirithous to stay. He was the instigator, after all. The accessory to the crime could have a lighter sentence than the mastermind. I believe this also shows how fair and just Hades was, especially when compared to his two brothers.
His brothers would have killed the whole damn family after betting their wives, okay? And maybe having a kid or two.
Exactly. Absolutely. Now, there are some theories that believe the union of Hades and Persephone was about balance in the world.
Ah, there it is. Hades' favorite line. But what do you mean?
Well, Persephone was the goddess of springtime, living in the sunlight in the land of the living, and Hades was the god of the dead and the underworld, dwelling in darkness and shadow. Hades was a powerful god, and Persephone was a gentle and, most likely, weaker goddess. Olympian and cthonic deity, light and dark, life and death, renewal and decay, male and female, flowers and iron. The marriage of these two deities brought multiple opposing forces together. And better yet, the two deities brought together were gods that were often cast to the side or asked to fit into preconceived notions. Hades as the unflinching king of the dead, excluded from Olympus, left to deal with the fallout of the wars instigated by his heavenly siblings. And Persephone, a goddess of a singular season, who was asked to be viewed as a permanent child under constant supervision.
Wow, that was beautiful, Sarah.
You seem a little sarcastic there, but you know what, I'll take it.
No, it was beautiful, it was. I think we got the point after light and dark, life and death, and then you kept going, renewal,
what
male,
can I say?
Female, flowers and iron, night and band.
You know what, it's a lot. It's a lot. Thank you very much. So Hades and Persephone are a representation of fate. No matter what Demeter said or did, Persephone had to return to the underworld to her husband, who in turn was just in allowing Persephone to leave at all. Hades and Persephone are also the ultimate representation of the cycle of life. Spring must end, and yet winter is always followed by spring. and the cycle of life and death continues on. Now, I also know some of you in the audience are thinking that what I just said is all hogwash and that I'm a little too optimistic in believing that Hades and Persephone were actually in love, and that instead, the story of Hades and Persephone is not at all romantic, but a classic case of Stockholm Syndrome.
Aha!
And I would like to present my findings to the court.
There's a court.
As to why I do not think this syndrome is central to the story. Firstly,
Who's the court, Sarah?
for it to be Stockholm Syndrome, there must be a power dynamic where one party has full control. While Persephone was obviously a weaker deity than Hades, Hades gave her a title in the underworld. She ruled the underworld as queen, not as a concubine, regent, or any other middling title. She was queen, full stop.
Yes, girl.
And the power that title granted was fully hers.
Period.
Likewise, just because she had power in the underworld did not mean she automatically adored Hades. Those who suffer from Stockholm Syndrome often adore and show immense gratitude to their captors. Persephone was showered in gifts, praise, and a crown by her husband, but she was still unhappy until months later, and was still unhappy until a better arrangement with Hades and Demeter was reached. Also, she was vehemently angry with Hades when she learned about Minthe, showing she was not blinded by a misguided affection for him.
Got it.
And for my last point,
Oh my gosh.
Stockholm Syndrome is marked by the captive having no desire to leave their captor. Persephone definitely wanted to leave Hades. She wanted to be reunited with her mother, her friends, and her family. Then, after a time, Persephone agreed to leave her mother, and then leave her husband, and then leave her mother, and then, you get it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
She accepted the arrangement.
She really did. And our theory being because she likes him.
She does. She likes him.
Yeah, like.
I'm sure many can argue the finer points of Stockholm Syndrome, but for today's episode, I shall simply leave it at this. I personally believe that Stockholm Syndrome does not apply to Hades and Persephone. And it doesn't apply to Beauty and the Beast either!
Whoa, settle down, Sarah. Calm thyself, sweet October child. Let's move on, shall we?
We probably should.
Let it go. Let
no.
it go. Breathe in with me.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Take over. I need a moment.
Whether or not our preppy girl and skater boy mutually cared for one another, besides our own theories, the two did have time in those 6 months out of the year to explore a little more than the underworld.
Gimme!
What? Sarah, step aside. This is my part of the episode, okay? I just had to go through 10 minutes of you talking about Stockholm Syndrome. So... All right. Where the fuck was I? Persephone and Hades are believed to have had 3 children. Possibly.
Possibly?
It's a bit complicated.
Of course it is.
2 children that are commonly cited as theirs are Zagreus and Melanoi. Both children have complicated backgrounds, though.
Of course they do.
Of course they do. Let's start off with Zagreus, god of the underworld, hunting, and also very much associated with Dionysus, god of fruitfulness, aka wine darling.
Ooh.
Pinot Grigio for me. What about you, Sarah?
Pinot Noir. But wait, why is he associated with Dionysus?
Well, that's because there are 2 versions of Zagreus, which is why it's kind of like they have 3 kids, but not really.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Bear with me. One being that he was the son of Hades and an unknown mother,
Ooh.
and another being that he was actually the son of Zeus and Persephone.
Persephone is Zeus's daughter! They're having kids together?
Oh, don't act surprised.
Ah.
Hera, being Hera, is not too pleased with Zagreus and has the Titans attack little Zagreus.
Oh no.
The Titans dismember and eat him, only leaving out his heart.
Ah!
I know. Athena takes his heart and gives it to Zeus, who swallows it.
Makes sense. Kronos swallowed Zeus, so, he's learning from his father.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right?
Right.
Zeus would then have a child with a human named Semele. And y'all, that's another whole dang story that is just as wild, but a hop, skip, and a boat ride later, Dionysus is born. With the heart of Zagreus. And now becomes known as Dionysus Zagreus.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's a lot. Maybe a season 2 episode?
Maybe season 3.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It should be noted that ancient Greek tragedian Aeschylus, I did that like 10 times, I hope you all know, identified Zagreus as the son of Hades, helping rule the underworld, but also as another name for Hades.
This is all starting to sound like that one song, I'm My Own Grandpa, where it's, okay, yeah, sure.
In truth, there isn't much on Zagreus. As time has passed, Zagreus has become part of both myths, one being that he is a child of Hades and Persephone, and another being that he was the child of Zeus and Persephone. To not be totally traumatized,
Just
I'd
partially.
like to say my canon myth is that Zagreus is Hades and Persephone's love child.
You know what?
Okay?
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Yes.
And also, is he really a love child if they're already married? Like, come on.
I mean, but it's the whole thing where they're like kinda, sorta, we don't know. Our theory is that they're in love with each other, but
Good point.
some
Good point.
historians might say not. Now, the story of Melanoe isn't any better, I'm afraid.
Great.
The tale goes that Zeus disguised himself as Hades and bedded Persephone, resulting in her pregnancy.
No!
Upon the true Hades discovering Persephone's pregnancy, he tore Melanoe's body to pieces.
No! I just spent so much of this episode building you up, Hades! Come on!
Yep. He tore himself down there.
Yeah.
Even after being torn, Melanoe survived and became goddess of nightmares and madness.
Yeah.
Unlike Zagreus, we have a bit more on Melanoe, which, total side note, I keep thinking about that SpongeBob
I
episode.
knew
Melanoe,
you were.
Melanoe.
Manoy.
It's my fault. Back to Melanoe. She's depicted as a shadowy figure with the ability to shapeshift, able to haunt the living as well as speak to the dead. In fact, Melanoe plays a big part in most tales of the underworld and is an important figure in Greek myths. I wanted to mention how I feel about her title of Goddess of Nightmares and Madness, and I feel like it could reflect to what perhaps Persephone felt. Her own father tricking her is something of a nightmare.
Yep.
And her husband tearing her child apart must have led her to madness.
Yep.
A tragic tale of deception, trauma, and loss.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I definitely. Oh, that was horrible.
well, let's go into modern media, shall we?
Of course, yeah.
We cannot do this episode without covering Rachel Smythe's webcomic, Lore Olympus, available for free on Webtoon. And why I say free is because it is for free. If you'd like to wait, you actually get 2 free episodes a day and then like 20 ad passes. So if you're down to like sit there and just like wait for the ads to pass and then read all 20, you can. Or right now it's going for 199 coins, which is like roughly $20 for the whole thing. But you can also support Rachel by purchasing the entire 9 volumes via their website, which we'll leave in the show notes.
The novel A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair is a reimagining of the Hades and Persephone myth.
You can meet, interact with, and possibly save the relationship between Hades and Persephone in the video game titled Hades by Supergiant Games.
I love that game.
Hades 2, yes, me too. And I love it because you can keep playing it.
You just keep going.
There's more that comes. Yeah. Hades 2 ventures into Melanoe's story, with early access available on Steam. The full game is slated to be released sometime this year on the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yes, and we didn't mention it, but Zagreus is the protagonist of the first Hades.
Yes.
So you get to play as both kids.
Yes.
The musical Hades Town tells a reimagined version of the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, with the story of Hades and Persephone woven throughout it. And that musical is so good. Oh my gosh.
I was about to say, you love that
musical. It kills me. I love it. All right, so that's it for our modern media. And for our siren call, today's siren call will be a little bit different. Tell us what your favorite episode has been from this season. You can tell us in the comments or in our public Discord server, which, as always, is linked in the show notes. We'd love to talk with all of you more, and we want to thank you.
Thank you guys for an amazing 35 episodes together. We are so excited for Season 2 and hope you will enjoy these 4 weeks of bonus content. A loving shout out to all our friends who have supported us from the very beginning, our Discord members, supporters, and subscribers, and of course, you.
Yes, you! Thank you for taking the time to let us educate you on the various myths and legends our world has to offer, while also enjoying us bantering, yelling, sighing, and I think also crying.
We did. We cried happy tears while we were laughing.
Yes, happy tears, happy tears. So, we will see you soon, friends. Story Sirens returns on June 5th.
Bye!
Bye!
Thanks for listening to Story Sirens. You can follow us on Instagram at Story Sirens Podcast. Want to support us? Send us a cup of Ko-fi by searching ko-fi.com/storysirens. We've got lots of treats for those who become siren seekers. All research materials can be found in the episode summary. Music by Donald Guzzi and artwork by Alexis Torres. Story Sirens is a Feather and Fin production. See you soon.